What is up, everybody? Just before the final break, finals game, we have a little break for our players, about 5 minutes left for that, but we're just going to come and, grace you with our voices.
Oh, nice. Yeah, Mike did end up winning that other semifinal,
Yeah.
so it will be Mike versus Brandon in the final. Actually, Game 2 ended up being somewhat similar to Game 1.
Yeah, pretty similar.
Mimikyu outlasted that Snorlax. Snorlax couldn't touch Mimikyu, and that was the match.
A very satisfying way to win. It's just, like when I initially saw it, I started laughing. It's just initially so absurd, but it really does make perfect sense. That sort of Snorlax set became popular in, I believe, the springtime of 2017, opting for stockpile over coverage move like High Horsepower in an attempt to build up stronger defenses, just become more of a lasting Pokemon. And as long as there's no ghosts, it usually works out pretty well.
But I've definitely seen some sets,
been
on the ghost side of them myself, where once you have a ghost,
I've been on the Snorlax side
Snorlax
myself.
can get stuck out there not doing anything. It's also interesting, Smeargle there with the Super Fang.
Over the Nature's Madness.
Couldn't touch Mimikyu either. Super Fang and Nature's Madness, the same move, other than one hitting ghosts and one not hitting ghosts.
I mean, Fairy's has no immunities. Normal does. Willing to say.
But one's a classic.
One's a classic, yeah, but, sometimes tradition has to die.
But yeah, Brandon, the other finalist.
I mean,
you just saw him on stream with this team with Marowak and Charizard.
Standard one.
Yeah, somewhat standard. That Marowak was really valuable for him.
Marowak was great. I think Marowak might be one of the most worrying Pokemon coming up, even though Camerupt doesn't care too much.
Well, it's interesting because there's no electric types. Actually, is there even an electric move on this entire roster?
I believe Porygon 2 on Mike's side does have Thunderbolt. We saw it a few times against Patrick in that Game 1.
That's right. So there's one Thunderbolt out there that Marowak might be able to help with, but otherwise not going to be providing that Lightning Rod support for Charizard that it generally tries to.
I mean, might not even see Charizard. Brandon threw out all his sets. Not super reliant on Charizard, really.
Yeah, and if you're not going to be relying on Charizard, this is a kind of good match to not bring it. Between the powder that could prevent your Charizard from attacking, the sun you might be just using to help Camerupt, Costa there to just easily rock slide you, and even though it's 4 times weak to that Solar Beam, you're just activating weakness policy and putting it at sturdy.
Yeah.
So definitely not a bad match to leave Charizard at home for.
However, by not bringing Charizard, you do, because Marowak is there, but you do sort of open up Tapu Bulu to have this bigger role, and Tapu Bulu's been a Pokemon that's really been valuable for Mike.
Yeah, no, I definitely think Marowak's not a bad decision. Also because, if you're going to play against a Trick Room team, kind of a good idea to have some slow Pokemon with you. That Marowak should be slower than things like Mimikyu and Tapu Bulu once, and then once Trick Room's up, move before them. Can kind of, if you can insert your Pokemon speeds in between your opponents, makes it much harder to take advantage of Trick Room.
Sort of sandwiching it creates a more dynamic situation. From Brandon, I'm going to go with just Game 1 right now, just because I don't want to overarch a little bit, but I expect Porygon 2 Marowak to have huge roles for Brandon, basically the entire set. The ability to reverse the Trick Room, the ability to fight in the Trick Room, both very important little options against a very hard Trick Room team. And at the same time, you have what is honestly, if you had told me this, Mike's team before the tournament, which I did see before the tournament, and told him that is ridiculous. I never expected Vion and Costa, let alone one of them, to make finals. And, Camerupt being here, didn't expect that. Tapu Bulu has been joked about a lot throughout basically its competitive relevance, and here we are in the finals with it. Very interesting little situation.
I think it's interesting. The team we've talked about being like the most common, the most consistent is that Metagross, Tyranitar, Mungus core. No finalist here with that roster. This
also
VGC 2018 format opens things up a lot.
One little thing I want to point out, not super. The game makes up more a part of it than the other way around. Hard Trick Room won last year. Trick Room played a absolutely vital role in winning the year before. You had Bronzong with the dual primal setup from Aaron Zhang in 2016. You had the hard Trick Room with Mimikyu Porygon 2 from Gavin Michaels last year. We might see Trick Room taking the SoCal Regionals for the 3rd year in a row.
Yeah. And more aggressive Trick Room, not just that Trick Room that's thrown on there. Trick Room is on Brandon's team too, so you couldn't say.
He has the option,
but
for Mike, it's more than an option.
Right.
It's a lifestyle. It's something you embrace to your very core.
It is the mode of the team. So the players have set down. We are getting ready to start. Team preview will begin any moment. Any last thoughts on this match coming up?
I have to say that our smart money choices are very amusing. The only person really left is Dwee, who I feel like you just kind of threw it out there, and you kind of helped him a little bit in doing so.
Yeah, so, I can take some credit too then.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a group project where, like, the partners don't show up, and Dwee's doing the brunt of the work, and you show up, and you're like, Len, on the paper.
I think Dwee chose it because it was the most different, most unique team
yeah,
in the top 8
absolutely.
cut. And then now it's here in the finals. So it's really cool to see something so different, get past not only Swiss, where you see all different matchups and all different players, but then get to top 8, where you're seeing players who have already proven themselves and gone 7-1 or better in the tournament, and normally players who have a lot of experience in situations like the top cut.
I have one more little funny thing to mention. Mike has not only confirmed this, but you can kind of see it when you watch it play. The Vivian has not been trained specially in any way.
So if you think about in the ways you might want to trade Vivian, if you train it in HP, you're making Endeavor do less damage.
Right.
If you train it in speed, then it moves less often in Trick Room. If you train it in attack, it has no attacks that use that attack stat. You're just maybe doing more in Confusion at some point. So it's just untrained. It's just fresh Vivian. This is its first ever action in this tournament.
He's just fresh off the block, just ready to make a difference in this world. Really, if you had a Pokemon that was to receive no special training of any sort, Vivian is the perfect one to be so. Once again, going into this team preview, we see that from Brandon, we have Charizard, Porygon 2, Landorus, Therian, Kartana, Marowak, Tapu Lele versus the Vivian, Tapu Bulu, Camerupt, Costa, Mimikyu, and Porygon 2. I'm just remembering all these little fun facts about our players here. If Brandon wins, he clinches that Worlds invite, while Mike doesn't really have that much CP at all. He would go probably at least 50% here, because you get 200 points for winning towards his Worlds invite. Might make him participate a little more in the season. Sort of extra pressure on Brandon. You really want to lock up that invite.
Yeah. Generally, players, once they have a CP, once it's there and you feel like you can get it, all these tournaments become a lot more important.
Mike, going into team preview right away, hard Trick Room teams tend to have less variation in terms of lead matchups or lead choices. You're very used to it, and they cover a wide variety of potential leads. You could have the Mimikyu Porygon 2, just to create this. It doesn't happen often, but there is that funny situation where if Brandon leads Porygon 2, tries to counter Trick Room, you can press double Trick Room,
or you're just not Trick Room at all.
But that's not as fun as double Trick Room.
But okay, if you feel like using 2 attacks to do nothing, then double Trick Room is the play for you.
I mean, I would have a lot of fun finding it. So, double Trick Room, please.
We'll see what happens.
Team preview vanishing as we're getting into the game 1. High pressure situation. Final round. We are ready to go. Show me the leads, please. Vivian and Porygon 2 from Mike Groshans, while from Brandon Meckley, we have Tapu Lele and Charizard.
Yeah, so a lot of offense coming out really early for Brandon, but that powder is there. Yeah. Even with this Psychic Train coming out from Tapu Lele, that powder is going to land onto Charizard to prevent it from using any fire attacks. So if it does go into Mega Charizard, bring out the Sun, go for some big fire attack, might just get it turned back against it just to see Trick Room go up, Camera Up come out, and regret it. So this is a dangerous position for Charizard to be in. Needs to see if it can figure out something useful to do that doesn't rely on Vivian not going for powder.
Also an interesting situation, because your main method of damaging Porygon 2 at this point is the Tapu Lele. We see that the Charizard switch out, doesn't even want to deal with powder, bring in the Marowak, a Pokemon we just talked about being very good against the Trick Room mode. As the Rage Powder comes out from the Vivian, trying to just protect Porygon 2 as its partner, the Psychic, going into the Vivian, probably activating that Focus Sash, enabling Endeavor to play a pretty nice little role, but probably won't move before that Marowak, even under Trick Room, as the Trick Room does, reverse the speeds a little bit, makes things even freakier in this weird terrain that's Psychic.
Yeah, and we have seen that Shadow Ball on Porygon 2, a coverage move kind of opted for sometimes over Thunderbolt or Ice Beam. Mike has all 3, and so Shadow Ball going to be able to deal a good chunk of damage to Marowak if Mike wants to here. Try to get that one slow Pokemon off the field to make it easier to play in his own Trick Room.
I have to imagine that Porygon 2 is in the back for Brandon as well. You might need something, and probably do, to reverse Trick Room in situations that call for it.
Yeah.
Vivillon opting for the Protect, doesn't want to get out of there just yet. That Endeavor play, pretty vital in the overall scheme of things. So the Shadow Bone going into that Protect, while Porygon 2 punishing that lack of attack with a Shadow Ball. Ooh, cute. Oh, was that a critical hit? Oh,
critical hit. Gets the one hit
Excellent
KO.
for Mike. You know, removing that Marowak, something so scary against the Trick Room mode, especially so early on, just enables so much offense.
And it's actually the double target into that Vivillon Protect, really not wanting to have an Endeavor land, and so both attacks land on that protecting 1 HP Vivillon, and that Shadow Ball just comes out completely for free. Does cost the 1 turn of Trick Room, though.
It does cost the 1 turn of Trick Room, but that Psychic was so risky, probably going for the punish on the Vivillon switch that was expected. And because you can hit the Shadow Bone and then redirect.
Yeah, have the Shadow Bone hit Vivillon if it tries to Rage Powder, then have the Psychic hit Porygon 2, or if there's a switch, double hit whatever switches in. Instead, because Vivillon protects, you get no damage off. Porygon 2 hits the field for Brandon here, probably going to be looking to reverse that Trick Room.
Ice Beam, is that from, that was from Brandon's, not opting to reverse that Trick Room just yet, not feeling the need with Tapu Lele being out to assert some offense of its own, as we see the Ice Beam from the opposing on. The Ducks are kind of fighting it out with their frozen water as the Psychic goes onto the Porygon 2, dealing over 50%. Remember, that is a choice Specs Tapu Lele in Psychic terrain. Huge damage as we see the special defense drop.
Yeah, the special defense drop means that Ice Beam from Porygon 2 looks a little scarier than it otherwise would be versus the Porygon 2 on the other side. But now the Camera Up hits the field, that big mega Trick Room sweeper.
Very safe, switching for the Camera Up as it replaces the Vivillon. Not a lot stopping it from just pressing Eruption.
There is the Charizard in the back, does resist Eruption, but not especially bulky Pokemon, and then not something you want in on Trick Room.
Yeah.
You bring Charizard in to take that Eruption, it's just stuck on the field looking at possible Porygon 2 Thunderbolts, not wanting to put up Sun and help this Camera Up. So still a very dangerous position here for Brendan. Has to figure out how to get out of this Trick Room, either reversing it or letting it expire. One problem with that Choice Specs Tapu Lele, can't protect here, so you're going to have to take an Eruption or switch.
Not opting to lose that Porygon 2 just yet, as we see the Tapu Bulu enter the field, taking away the Psychic terrain and weakening the Tapu Lele. Probably going to see that Camera Up go into its Mega Form as it's strictly stronger, as we see the Lele retreat for the Charizard. Not the best thing to take an Eruption. While it will take it, its offense is not super strong because you can provide the Sun for Camera Up to just continue pressing Eruption. Camel growing in size, it's ready to use that Volcano on its back to singe this grass. Eruption just hitting both the targets. Interesting to see how much it'll do to that Porygon 2, taking it to about half, while Charizard taking huge damage. The reverse of the Trick Room goes out, Camera Up now being the slowest on the field, just like it was meant to be, as Tapu Bulu grassy terrain sort of helps Brandon out, at least in this short term.
Yeah, giving a little bit of health back to that Porygon 2. Charizard will be now the fastest Pokemon on the field, attacking first with those big fire attacks. If it does opt to Mega Evolve, no powder to worry about anymore. Vivillon was targeted down very aggressively by Brandon so that he would be able to get these big Charizard fire attacks off. Tapu Bulu obviously doesn't want to take that. Porygon 2 in the back, not nearly good enough health to switch into a fire attack. Definitely aggressive position for this Charizard. Going to be looking to get a lot of damage out of it.
Porygon 2 getting out of there. Tapu Lele coming in. A bit scary considering that Tapu Lele very well be the tool that allows Brandon to take this game back. The terrain returning to the Psychic nature as the Charizard just opts for a Protect, not willing to give Camera Up that extra boost in power. Free attacks from Mike coming in. This could be huge. But we do see Protect instead of an offensive move. Not willing to lose Bulu just yet as Camera Up goes for the very safe Flamethrower onto the Lele slot. Should be able to take that just fine.
Yeah, and Charizard protecting itself from the turn Tapu Bulu protects. Now next turn, either Tapu Bulu would have to attempt to double protect or switch out to that Porygon 2, which we've talked about not very healthy after taking that giant Choice Specs Tapu Lele Psychic. So easy turn here for Charizard to just go for a big fire attack on Bulu and then that big Psychic on Camera Up.
Camera Up getting out of there, doesn't want to deal with all this just yet. So much power possible from Brandon. Porygon 2 returning to the field, getting its download boost, but in the attack stat, not too helpful. Charizard opting to go for Mega because Brandon believes this is a situation where he could remove Camera Up from the field, making Sun only a benefit for him. As Charizard Y grows its wings and creates that sunlight. Going to be some huge damage here. A Heat Wave Mist can be huge, as well as an Overheat Mist. We do see the Overheat come out, go for the Tapu Bulu, easy KO especially. Probably didn't even need the Sun for that one.
No, I don't think so. I mean, that Charizard has such high special attack right into that Tapu Bulu, weak to the high base power Overheat.
Psychic hitting a Porygon 2. The Choice Spec Psychic power enough to take it out, making it so the Camera Up has to take on the remaining Pokemon. Very difficult situation, even with Charizard's lowered special attack stat.
Yeah, Brandon meeting Michael's aggressive offensive team with his own aggressive offense, reverses that Trick Room, and then just goes all-out offense with his giant overheats and the Choice Spec Psychics, and just too much offense too quickly once Porygon 2 got damaged.
Tapu Bulu really not carrying its weight there, only proving to be KO. Camera Up 1 versus 3 is very difficult considering that all the speed is on Brandon's side. Even his slowest Pokemon, Porygon 2, will easily outspeed that Mega Camera Up.
I think it's interesting because Tapu Bulu never likes to see Charizard, but Michael is so well equipped to deal with Charizard, often doesn't see it or is able to handle it. This game didn't work out that way, and so Charizard gets that overheat off.
Psychic coming out, going onto that Camera Up slot should be enough to pick up the KO thanks to the conjunction of Choice Specs and Psychic Terrain. Up to Mike to really make those adjustments.
Yeah, I think he's got, we talked about not even bringing Charizard before the game, but now he needs to find a better way to deal with it. Maybe protect Vivillon, but, it took so many attacks were targeted at Vivillon before it actually got KO'd. It's hard to ask much more out of that. Having the Costa could be valuable to make sure there's something that can take an attack from Charizard and return for the KO in a desperate scenario. Maybe protecting Porygon 2's health some more. That Ice Beam onto the other Porygon 2 was not very valuable, and traded it for that giant Psychic that meant Porygon 2 could, once the Trick Room was reversed by the Porygon 2 on Brandon's side, the Porygon 2 on Mike's side had no chance to set the Trick Room back again. The other thing to mention is that Mimikyu wasn't brought in that game. It's another Trick Room setter that, because of its disguise, can come in against these really aggressive Pokemon from Brandon's side and get the desperate Trick Room that you need to turn the momentum back into your favor. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Mike bring that Mimikyu and have its Z-move and its disguise-covered Trick Room available to him.
Yeah, but the Bulu seems the easy slot to replace. If he just had even the slightest bit more offensive presence, he might have been able to take that game. He was looking very good early on. I think, again, the combination of Porygon 2 and Marowak made a lot of sense and is a very good way to try and contain the Trick Room offense, and the Tapu Lele proving that the Psychic, just the super powerful Psychics are incredibly deadly.
Yeah, that's the one thing the Tapu Bulu does provide, is switching the terrain, weakening those Psychics some, but because Lele is able to come back in, and get that Psychic Terrain back, is still very powerful. And because of the Choice Specs, even if you do manage to get the Grassy Terrain out, those Psychics still hurt a lot.
The Charizard also interesting. While we didn't quite anticipate it, it does really restrict the Bulu, and that was the risk in really bringing Bulu to that first game. As the team, the leads more like, are being shown by our players here, it's going to be interesting to see just how Mike makes an adjustment. Brandon opting for the Charizard Tapu Lele lead, working very well for him in the previous game, while we see the same leads, Vivillon and Porygon 2 from Mike.
It was interesting, on the first turn of the last game, Vivillon didn't actually powder that Charizard. It rage powdered, moving that Psychic away from Porygon 2 onto Vivillon. If Brandon thinks that Mike might do that again, wanting to protect that Porygon 2 from that Psychic, it's pretty easy here to just go ahead and use a Fire move, combine with that Psychic and KO Vivillon now, not have to worry about powder or any rage powder, not all those attacks that were spent towards the Vivillon slot in the last game. But that's obviously a very risky play, because powder does come out. Not only is your Charizard doing nothing, it's taking damage for its effort.
It looks like Mike should have a fairly safe Trick Room set up, but the real question is, will that be enough? I feel that Brandon probably has the resources to try and combat it pretty well.
I'm sure there's a Porygon 2 in the back on Brandon's side there to reverse the Trick Room and try to go back through the script of the last game.
Seeing the Rage Powder from the Vivillon once again, not opting for that Powder, as Charizard goes for the Heat Wave, not going for the Mega, doesn't want to power up that Camera Up in the back. Critical hit on the Porygon 2, but not too much damage thanks to Charizard's neutral state. As the Psychic goes into the Vivillon thanks to the Rage Powder, Vivillon being KO'd early, but enabling Porygon 2 to get a safe Trick Room.
Yeah, Trick Room's going to go up here. Brandon does make that slightly risky play. I mentioned goes ahead and uses the Fire attack with the Vivillon on the field, and is rewarded pretty well for it. Gets the KO on Vivillon and some extra damage onto Porygon 2. Smartly doesn't Mega Evolve, so when this Camera Up now comes in under Trick Room, doesn't have to deal with Sun, and that Charizard can go back to the back and bring in that Porygon 2 to reverse the Trick Room if it wants. I think this is an even better position after the first turn for Brandon than the last game, and that last game ended up working out well for him.
What I think Mike really needs to do is put the pressure on right now. You know that Tapu Lele can't switch, and Charizard doesn't really want to stick around too much. You can go for the Eruption and the safe double tap on the Tapu Lele, but Porygon 2 switching in might make it not enough.
Yeah, and Charizard can also protect itself and see the Porygon 2 come into that slot if you're worried about the fact that Tapu Lele can't protect, and that's such an easy target to go for.
Tapu Lele switching out instead of the Charizard, at least as far as we know. Kartana making an appearance. Interesting choice, considering that it doesn't really do too much against what is very likely to be a camera-up offense.
I think it's just a sacrificial lamb right
Absolutely. Here. Porygon 2 making an appearance as well on Brandon's side. Going to take free damage because it's doing that switch, camera-up going into its Mega Form. No doubt, pressing Eruption, picking up the KO on the Kartana, dealing, and should deal fairly large damage on the Porygon 2. The Ice Beam, or the likely Ice Beam follow-up, but potentially Thunderbolt follow-up, dealing nice little damage to the Porygon 2 on the side.
Wow. That Kartana does nothing.
That Kartana.
And Pokemon are barely...
Oh, he goes for the Shadow Ball.
Trying to guarantee the KO into Tapu Lele, going for the super effective Shadow Ball, so it doesn't damage the Porygon 2 on the switch in. Not the end of the world, though. That Ice Beam wouldn't have been that much extra damage. The overheat is, or rather the Eruption is really the damage you're going for there on Porygon 2.
Yeah, I mean, the Shadow Ball, while unfortunate in that specific scenario, we didn't expect Kartana, of all things, to really switch out, seeing, not the biggest pressure against these camera-up Trick Rooms.
I think it's interesting because it probably was there to beat a Caracosta if that ended up coming. Caracosta can't do much back to Kartana with its high defense stat, and both of its same type attack boosted attacks being resisted by Kartana. And of course, that 4-ton super effective Leaf Blade will activate the weakness policy and put it right to Sturdy, but does so much damage.
The interesting thing here is whether or not Porygon 2 can take the combination of Eruption and Thunderbolt or Ice Beam. Tapu Lele returning to the field, something that can provide a bit of offensive presence, even punish Mike even if he manages to knock out the Porygon 2.
But also can't protect. We'll have to take an Eruption here. Can't just try to protect and reverse the Trick Room. Going to need to take damage in that slot now that you do have the choice specs Tapu Lele out. Could be an easy double target. Shadow Ball
absolutely.
Plus, or maybe Thunderbolt plus Eruption, so that if Charizard comes in there, you get that KO, depending on how much you think that Eruption does to Tapu Lele. If Thunderbolt plus Eruption is the KO there.
Charizard returning to the field, trying to bait out the Shadow Ball from the Porygon 2 as the Eruption returns. Just spreading out huge amounts of damage once again. Porygon 2 hanging on to without too much, but we do see the recover. Trying to just survive another turn. Porygon 2 pretty vital to Brandon's success in Game 2. The Thunderbolt from Mike. Who's it going? Charizard slot. Excellent. That's one of the big problems with the Tapu Lele Porygon 2 position. There were no available protects, allowing Mike to really use his offense to the fullest.
Yeah, I think Brandon there deciding to go for outlasting the Trick Room rather than reversing it, and trying to just expect the Shadow Ball, bait it out into the Charizard slot instead. Mike does make that read that we mentioned and gets the Thunderbolt plus Eruption to KO Charizard. Now Tapu Lele is going to have to take a Shadow Ball plus Eruption, going to go down. Porygon 2 can't beat a whole team by itself.
No, it can't. I mean, that was really Brandon's folly there, opting to go for the recover instead of reversal of the Trick Room, maybe creating a bit of a better situation for himself as we see the combination of Eruption and Shadow Ball knocking out the Tapu Lele, creating a 1-on-3 situation. Not only great for Mike in that winning a game, but it's very possible that he can conceal what his last Pokemon was in an attempt to create a more ambiguous team preview setup for Game 3.
Yeah, if you don't know whether he actually did decide to bring Caracosta, you're still wondering if you need to bring that Kartana. If it's actually Tapu Bulu, how much do you need to protect Charizard? How much do you have to worry about suddenly losing your Psychic Train if you were counting on that Psychic damage? It's always nice to not, let your opponent see your hand, find out exactly what you were playing with.
I would like the Trick Room from Mike here because I feel that Porygon 2 from Brandon is undoubtedly going to recover, as if he doesn't, he's going to lose right here.
Yeah, gonna, eventually be over. Wouldn't be surprised to just see a concession to, there's really no way back for this Porygon 2.
Yeah, not at all.
You can start trying to weaken that Eruption, but if you're not recovering, you're taking way too much damage way too quickly.
Better use of time is probably think about the adjustments that Kartana, while questionable, did provide, the very possible and safe option against Caracosta.
Yeah. Interesting that we still didn't see Mimikyu unless it was the fourth Pokemon.
Yeah, very possible in its own right. And Kartana also kind of deals with that.
Yeah, to some extent. Doesn't worry so much about that Play Rough or the Let's Snuggle Forever. Doesn't want to get burnt by that Will-O-Wisp, though.
No, it doesn't. I mean, Kartana is definitely a better option for Caracosta on paper. It's just that, the Kartana provides a great situation against the Mimikyu. But, I mean, you force it to Will-O-Wisp, but it stops Mike's kind of offense. Mike would rather go for the Snuggle Forever in that case.
Well, and a burnt Kartana is better than an erupted Kartana.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, burnt to a crisp was better than slightly singed. Worse than slightly singed.
Just a matter of time here. Porygon 2 did get that recover off last turn. No Trick Room that you mentioned coming down, so it's still going to have another chance to recover before Eruption comes out. But if it's not doing any damage, those eruptions stay at full strength.
You know, Mike just trying to deal out as much damage as possible once again, recover, you know, baiting out or just waiting out the time a little bit. I like Brandon's use of it, honestly, just because it allows him more time to think for team preview.
Yeah, trying to figure out what he can do differently. You know, that Tapu Lele was so valuable in the first game, but it was such a liability in this game. I mean, every time it was on the field with Trick Room up, it was a dangerous, dangerous position for Brandon. Can he afford to do that? Or does he need the damage?
I feel like he needs Tapu Lele. The damage output is just too valuable.
He definitely won game one because of the damage.
I mean, what was interesting to note as well is the difference in how Vivillon played a role in these two games. Vivillon survived in the Trick Room, burning Mike's Trick Room terms in game one. So while it initially seemed good that Vivillon got to stick around for so long, by it leaving the field so early in game two, it enabled Mike to make more use out of the turns of Trick Room.
Yeah, we also didn't see Marowak from Brandon in this game. In the previous game, it was the one who hit the field right after Trick Room went up and just got KO'd by Shadow Ball.
And I think, at least from the mental aspect, I kind of do... the fourth Pokemon here, we'll never know, at least until we ask Mike later. But Caracosta, I like a lot going into Game 3 because now you put in the idea that Kartana is a huge risk.
Yeah, I mean, if I was Brandon and I just watched my Kartana switch in and, like, not just KO'd, but, like,
burst into flame.
Yeah, I mean, so far beyond the damage you need to KO that Kartana. I would not be wanting to bring it again. I'd be thinking about the fact that, well, I already have Tapu Lele that can't do anything once Trick Room is up. Then I have Kartana that can't do anything and can't switch in. So then I'm just looking at Porygon 2 and Charizard as my only things that can take interruption, be on the field during interruption, and Charizard has to obviously worry about the Thunderbolt.
Yeah. Also interesting to note Charizard's role in that game. It was more similar to our analysis pre-game one. It didn't really do that much. It just ended up heat waving outside of its mega form, not providing Sun or much offensive pressure for Brandon at all, getting KO'd in the Trick Room later. If he had gone with maybe the Kartana over the Charizard slot instead of the Marowak slot, he would have been able to keep a Kartana in the back while still having a Marowak that can pressure Mike's Trick Room mode. Mike already locking in. Once again, the Trick Room setup pretty straightforward.
It is interesting. Mike has those two fires that both obviously resist fire, but Marowak then weak to ground, so it's a very easy Earth Power target for Camerupt. So a little less able to stay on the field against Camerupt, and obviously also has to worry about Shadow Ball. Something like Shadow Ball plus Eruption is probably the KO on that Marowak exactly the same way that Thunderbolt plus
if you even need the Shadow Ball to provide support for the Earth Power.
No, I said plus the Eruption.
For the Eruption.
Yes. So in the same way that he can combo one Porygon 2 attack with the Eruption, still put out the spread damage, but get the KO on the Fire type.
Yeah.
Probably true against both of those Fire types. And that makes it really difficult because no other Pokemon resists Fire out there.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting very much to note the sort of relationship between these three Fire types. Charizard and Marowak, definitely more versatile in terms of team building, easier to put on a team. Camerupt only really being an option on these sort of hard Trick Room teams, but you do see that because Camerupt has that ground typing, that in this situation the dynamic allows it for it to beat the other fires.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Landorus hasn't been brought yet either.
Yeah, Landorus seems like a pretty interesting option. We know that it has Assault Vest from the past game. It's just that his ability to press Earthquake very limited because his only immunity to Earthquake is Charizard.
Yeah, and then obviously Ice Beam plus Eruption's the KO despite that Assault Vest. So another case where something that might be able to take an Eruption can't take Eruption plus whatever Porygon 2 does.
From Mike, we see Porygon 2 and Vivillon return to the field, while from Brandon we see the adjustment. Instead of Charizard in the lead slot, we see Porygon 2 trying to prevent that Trick Room setup immediately. Can't have that happen again. I'd say this situation favors Brandon a lot more than the other ones just because you not only have your immediate strong offense, but the anti-Trick Room option.
Yeah, I think it's really valuable for him that Porygon 2 is on the field immediately. He benefited in Game 1 because that Shadow Ball KO'd Marowak. Porygon 2 freely switched in and then reversed Trick Room.
Yeah.
In Game 2, he had to switch it in. It took a lot of damage. Then he was feeling like he needed to recover it rather than reversing Trick Room because it had taken so much damage. Now it's already on the field.
Vivillon opting to go for the Protect, wants to preserve that Focus Sash a bit as we see the Psychic just go right for the Porygon 2, need to damage that thing as soon as possible. Doing not as much damage as it had previously, while we see the Shadow Ball just go straight for the Tapu Lele, making it very dangerous for Brandon to press Trick Room, which we do see. Oh man, that's so big!
Ouch! Oh, that Trick Room to reverse the Trick Room on the same turn it goes up is always such a dangerous play because instead if your opponent doesn't do it, well, then you've just given them the Trick Room you were trying to avoid. And then especially against this more aggressive Porygon 2 with those 3 moves, it's going to 2-hit KO this Tapu Lele now with Shadow Ball.
And no Protect.
And you let it do the first one while you set up Trick Room. No Protect here, so it can just Shadow Ball this Tapu Lele. I'm sure Brendan is something that can switch into a Porygon 2 Shadow Ball, but still, that's just free extra damage and more turns where you're not attacking. Well, and Vivillon still has its Sash in play, undamaged, so it can just Rage Powder away anything useful, or go ahead and switch to a Trick Room Sweeper, come back into the end of the game, provide Rage Powder support once you run out of Trick Room. Always useful to have that.
Seeing the Landorus make an appearance from Brandon, pretty good. Something definitely able to take the Shadow Ball here, hoping for no Ice Switch Predict. Vivillon opting to stay in, doesn't want to preserve, or doesn't want to save it for later, wants that Friend Guard for Porygon 2. And Deaver just going to hit that Porygon 2, something that normally has so much bulk, being reduced for free. The reversal of the Trick Room coming, but maybe not enough because Rage Powder is still so powerful here.
Yeah, you can just Rage Powder and set the Trick Room back up again. You probably have to worry about a Rock Slide then. Obviously, that's great damage against Vivillon and could flinch that Porygon 2. You also have to worry about an Ice Beam. Lots of damage to that Landorus, even with the Assault Vest, is a dangerous amount of damage. Porygon 2, I'd guess on Brendan's side, is not going to Trick Room for a 3rd turn in a row. Doesn't want to risk that again. So probably if you're Mike, this is a good turn to go ahead and Trick Room yourself, especially if there's something like Endeavor. If you can take the Rock Slide with Vivillon down to 1 HP and then Endeavor the Porygon 2, then you can really prevent the Trick Room reversal.
Yeah. Not a super scary situation for Mike necessarily because he does threaten that Ice Beam Friend Guard from Vivillon, making it so Porygon 2 probably won't be KO'd here, and Protect just making sure that the Friend Guard will be, it'll last for at least 2 more, or, well, I guess the double tap could happen, but 2 turns, not super far off. The U-turn hitting the Porygon 2, trying to make some positioning plays. Interesting to see what these Porygons choose to do. The Ice Beam, rather obvious from Mike, but he might have went for that Landorus bait.
And it is a lot of damage building up on this Porygon 2. Obviously, it can't have Recover along with these 3 coverage moves plus Trick Room, so that damage is all going to stay on the field.
Porygon 2 from Brandon, Ice Beaming his own, while Trick Room knowing that Brandon's just too scared now. He doesn't want to create a situation much like turn 1.
But this is such an easy Trick Room reversal for Brandon. It's just click the button. There's nothing that Mike can do about it except the inverse of the first turn, where now maybe Mike feels like he needs to Trick Room a 2nd turn in a row to prevent the Trick Room from Brandon's side from reversing the Trick Room. Meanwhile, Marowak's free to go for big attacks, either KOing that Porygon 2 if it doesn't get Rage Powdered away, or
Powdered.
Or Powdered. Well, yeah. Low Kick is an option to KO Porygon 2, which would at least break the Sash if it's Rage Powdered, but not do all the damage that the Flare Blitz would do if it's Rage Powdered. But of course, yeah, you don't want to just get recoiled when you try to Flare Blitz and get powdered.
I mean, in my mind, it's a pretty easy situation where you recover Porygon 2. You really need it around to preserve your win condition.
There is no recover, though.
Oh, right, it's 3 attacks. Every other Porygon 2 in this tournament just so used to recovering, but not Mike. A low kick instead of the Flare Blitz, breaking the Sash on Vivillon, but not enough in this situation or to preserve any sort of position. Shadow Ball hitting the Marowak for large damage is the reversal of the Trick Room, coming into effect. If Porygon 2 from Brandon's side can pick up the KO on Vivillon, maybe the Marowak can...
If there's... What I would expect to see from Mike's side is that Rage Powder plus Trick Room. You've got to put it back up since it was reversed. But... Yeah, exactly. But if the Ice Beam KOs Vivillon, then Marowak's free to KO Porygon 2. The other thing to mention is that Porygon 2 we do see is faster than that Marowak. And so it could just Shadow Ball and KO the Marowak while you add the Rage Powder. That way that you're getting a KO and you're making sure that Porygon 2 stays on the field for at least another turn. Maybe you won't ever be able to set up Trick Room again if you do that and give up your Rage Powder, but at least you're getting a KO, getting this Marowak off the field, living to fight another day.
I mean, you're really hoping here that the Vivillon can take the hit, but he doesn't go for the Protect, goes for the Rage Powder instead. Doesn't want to lose Porygon 2 just yet. You see Shadow Ball come out from Mike, knocking out Marowak. Pretty big KOs. Lele and Landorus are in the back. Interesting to see what Porygon 2 does. Hopefully he doesn't try to reverse a Trick Room or something, as you just see the Ice Beam hit the Vivillon. Very important how much this is going to do. It does pick up that KO, vital for Brandon. That might be able to...
It's really interesting, because that's a scenario where if this Vivillon wasn't untrained to benefit Endeavor and instead had lots of training in HP and special defense, would have been able to take that Ice Beam. Because it's untrained to benefit Endeavor, instead goes down to Ice Beam, isn't there to provide Friend Guard, isn't there to provide Rage Powder.
Scary situation for Mike. seeing the camera up, not the Mimikyu, to me, makes me feel like Costa is the one in the back, as we've seen Landorus return to the field as well.
Yeah, and I would expect the Landorus to just immediately, aggressively go after that Porygon 2.
Yeah.
Probably means Earthquake, because that also adds a lot of damage down to the Camerupt. We don't know if the... we do know that the Lele is in the back, so there's no real partner to take the Earthquake with, but maybe you're content to just take it with Porygon 2 and recover because it can be so valuable for you here, and you can't afford to let Porygon 2 survive the turn in either Trick Room or Ice Beam.
Yeah, and Camerup's offense, while able to seal the deal within game 2, Landorus and Porygon 2 so bulky that Camerupt probably couldn't score a KO this turn. Porygon 2 looking like such an easy target, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of counterplay to that.
No, I really don't know what he can do to stop this Earthquake from doing so much, unless that Porygon 2 is able to take the Earthquake.
Maybe hoping that he tries to overexert himself with the Earthquake and opt for an attack on the Camerupt. We do see Earthquake come out, willing to injure his own Porygon 2 if it means the removal of Mike's. Able to just barely hang on. If Porygon 2 doesn't target, he can reset the Trick Room. The Ice Beam comes out. Who's it targeting? Porygon 2 making the safe play. Camerupt so injured, the Eruption, wouldn't be able to damage much either. Flamethrower going for the instead, maybe hoping for a burn here. Doing pretty solid amount of damage, but not nearly enough thanks to that Assault Vest.
And it is interesting. We've seen Mike's Porygon 2 move before the other Porygon 2 a couple times. We don't know if it's faster or just speed type, but maybe if he was Trick Rooming there, and that's the only reason that Porygon 2 moved first, he could have just Ice Beamed with Landorus instead. It's tough to say.
Costa instead of Mimikyu, it's a rough situation. He needs to... He can't... I don't think he can KO Porygon 2 and Landorus in this situation.
No, he's going to... This Earthquake's going to continue to come out. There's no reason not to. It's going to KO Camerupt, so you've got to protect Camerupt. That means Costa's going to take it. It's going to do a lot of damage, and obviously not KO Costa because of the sturdy, but also because it isn't enough damage.
Oh, opting to go for the Earthquake. Easy pickup on Camerupt.
Oh, it's right. No protect. Had to go down.
The weakness policy from Costa, pretty nice, but I don't see how it's going to be able to take on the combination of either Porygon 2 and Lele or Landorus.
No, when the Lele comes back in, it will just Psychic.
Yeah.
That's the end of the game. I think this was really well played by Brendan.
It was,
his Porygon
absolutely.
2. He led his Porygon 2, set it on the field the entire game, and just countered every Trick Room with another Trick Room. Even the mistake on the first turn to try to counter too early and set up the own Trick Room, he still had his Porygon 2. It was still healthy. He could just reverse his own Trick Room back. And so, and I think one of the things really important here was the difference in one Porygon 2 having recover and the other not. If Mike had been able to keep his Porygon 2 healthy and continue to fight back and forth with these Porygon 2s, it might have been a closer game. But instead, only the Porygon 2 on Brendan's side was able to stay healthy, just simply outlasted the other Porygon 2 and removed Trick Room for the rest of the game.
That Ice Beam KOing the Vion earlier, absolutely critical in this current situation. If Vion had been able to take that hit, we might have seen a completely different scenario here. The Psychic wrapping up this game, ensuring that Brandon Meckley becomes your SoCal Costa Mesa regional champion, clinching that Worlds invite. Going to see him in Nashville in Tennessee.
Yeah, got the World invite, got the regional win. Really great play and great tournament, Brandon.
Quick little fun fact, this is also the third year in a row where NorCal has come in second place. Patrick Smith in 2016, James Eakes in 2017, and now Mike Groshans.
NorCal just can't win in SoCal.
No. It's pretty odd considering that NorCal is just so much better than SoCal, but really just congratulations to Brandon and well played to Mike as well.
Well, we will take a very short break and be right back with a player interview with your SoCal regional champion, Brandon Meckley.
Be right back.